Welcome, everyone. Today, we are diving into an incredible story, an invisible revolution about microscopic assassins and the brilliant minds who finally drag them into the light. And it all kicks off with one heck of a question.
Just think about that for a second. Forget about all the wars, all the natural disasters you've ever read about. What if the deadliest, most destructive force humanity has ever faced was something you literally could not see?
Because, for pretty much all of human history, they were. The plagues that wiped out millions, the fevers that stole children, they were all caused by an enemy that was living right among us, completely unseen.
Okay, so to really get this, we have to journey into that invisible world. We're about to pull back the curtain on a universe that is just teeming with life, on a scale that is almost impossible to wrap your head around.
And the key to unlocking this world is, of course, microbiology. It's the science of all the small stuff. We're talking bacteria, viruses, fungi, all those organisms you can't see without a microscope. And honestly, this entire field is the bedrock of medicine as we know it.
It's kind of wild to think about now, but for centuries, when somebody got sick, the best guess anyone had was that it was caused by miasma. Just bad air. The idea that a tiny living thing could get inside your body and make you sick, that was pure fantasy.
But that all changed thanks to a few absolutely brilliant and stubborn pioneers. These are the guys we call the microbe hunters, the scientists who dragged us out of an age of superstition and into an age of scientific proof.
Now, we'd had glimpses of microbes way back in the 1600s, but the real action, the big show, all happened during what we call the golden era of microbiology. And what's staggering is how fast it all happened. In basically a single human lifetime, our entire understanding of what causes disease was turned completely on its head.
And at the heart of this golden era, you have two absolute titans, Louis Pasteur, a chemist from France, and Robert Koch, a physician from Germany. They were working at the same time, they were even rivals. Pasteur was all about the big picture, proving that these tiny germs were the root cause of things like rot and disease in general. Koch, on the other hand, was more of a detective. He wanted to nail down exactly which microbe was responsible for which specific killer disease.
And their rivalry? It ended up fueling a revolution. Their work didn't just add a new chapter to science. It completely tore up the old rulebook and wrote a brand new one for how we fight disease.
Pasteur's first huge fight was against an idea called spontaneous generation. This was the belief that life could just kind of appear out of nothing, like maggots on old meat or mold on bread. Pasteur said no way. He argued that all life, even microscopic life, had to come from other life.
And he proved it with this incredibly elegant experiment. He took a flask with a long, curved swan neck and boiled some broth in it to kill everything inside. Now that curve let air get in, but it trapped any dust or microbes floating in the air. As long as the neck was intact, the broth stayed perfectly clear. But the second he snapped that neck off, boom, the broth was swarming with microbial life. The proof was undeniable. The germs weren't magic, they were in the air all along. And this wasn't just some dusty old lab work. It had immediate, practical uses. He showed the French wine industry that it was microbes that were spoiling their wine, and by gently heating it, he could kill the bad microbes without wrecking the wine. And that process? Well, we call it pasteurization, and it's the exact same reason the milk in your fridge is safe to drink.
Okay, so while Pasteur was proving germs were real, Robert Koch was basically hunting down the FBI's most wanted list of the microbial world. He was the first person to offer stone-cold proof that one specific microbe causes one specific disease. He's the guy who identified the culprits behind anthrax, the horrifying lung disease tuberculosis, and the pandemic-causing cholera. This was absolutely revolutionary.
To prove his cases, Koch came up with this bulletproof method, a scientific checklist for identifying a killer. We now call them Koch's postulates, and the rules were simple but brilliant. 1. You got to find the suspect microbe in every single victim. 2. You have to isolate it and grow it all by itself. 3. You take that culture and show it causes the exact same disease in a healthy animal. And 4. You have to be able to pull that very same microbe back out of the new victim. It became the gold standard for proving guilt in the microbial world.
So, all this history is fascinating, but what does it actually mean for us today? Well, you can draw a perfectly straight line from these discoveries in the 1800s right to the medicines on your local drugstore shelf.
It all comes down to this number, 2. Just two scientists, Pasteur and Koch.
Their work created the foundation for pretty much every single tool we have to fight infectious disease, from vaccines and antibiotics to just basic hygiene and clean surgery.
And today, microbiology is the absolute bedrock of the pharmacy world. We discover new drugs like penicillin that actually come from microbes themselves. We use its principles to make sure every pill and every shot is sterile and safe. Pharmacists use this knowledge to help doctors pick the right antibiotic, and our public health officials use it to track diseases and develop vaccines. It's everywhere.
I mean, just think about it. Every single time a surgeon washes their hands before an operation, every time a child gets a vaccine, every single time an infection is stopped in its tracks by an antibiotic, we are seeing the direct result of the work these two men did. Pasteur even created vaccines for anthrax and rabies himself, saving countless lives.
And that brings us to today. We're standing on the shoulders of these giants, and we're looking out at the next chapter in our long, complicated relationship with this invisible world.
The revolution that Pasteur and Koch started was all about identifying and controlling our enemies. They gave us the playbook. They turned these mysterious, invisible killers into known adversaries that we could finally understand, target, and defeat.
But that leaves us with a really fascinating final thought, doesn't it? For 150 years, the story of microbiology has basically been a story of war, us versus the germs. But now we know our bodies are filled with good microbes once we actually need to be healthy. So, after all this time learning how to conquer our microbial enemies, maybe the next great frontier is learning how to cooperate with our microbial allies.